When the ANC-led government announced a staggering 450 million rands budget for the so-called National Dialogue, we all knew corruption and mismanagement were guaranteed. But nothing could prepare me or you for where that money really went and who ended up pocketing it. Everyone expected waste when the so-called National Dialogue was announced, but what we uncovered goes far beyond the ordinary mismanagement and corruption. This isn't just about this bloated 450 million rands budget disappearing into thin air or actually into the ANC pockets. It's about who the ANC chose to run it and the disturbing ideology shaping the entire process. In this video, I'll take you inside all of this chaos and expose the key figure driving it and reveal why this national dialogue is not what South Africans were promised by the ANC. Last week, as Ramaphosa's so-called national dialogue finally kicked off with the national convention held at UNISA, a video went viral highlighting the absolute chaos in which this inaugural event descended. The video highlighted how the facilitator appointed to take the lead for this inaugural event, Naude, tried in vain to bring calm to the absolutely counterproductive chaos that the discussion quickly descended into. But who is this Naude, and how did she end up in such a prominent role in the National Dialogue? Well, Naude actually kicked off her career as a scholar in 2005 by completing a master's degree in psychology at the University of Stellenbosch. The title of her thesis was Reconstructing Pedophilia, an analysis of the current discourses and the construct of close relationships. In her thesis, she argues for, and I quote, a better understanding of pedophilia, challenging what she calls the dominant positivist approach to pedophilia research, which embeds and perpetuates moral and often prejudicial positions. In other words, she's arguing that the act of pedophilia should be separated from the so-called orientation, and implying that the orientation must be accepted just as homosexuality, transgenderism, etc. was accepted over the past few decades. We here at the Willem Petzer group did a little digging into who Naude is and how exactly she ended up getting this prominent role in the National Dialogue. In this video, we will highlight her views on pedophilia and other social issues to expose some of the ideologies driving this entire process and just how far left the people who are in charge of this dialogue and who is pocketing all of this money actually is. After all, the taxpayers of this country who are responsible for funding this dialogue deserves to know the credentials of the people who are being paid to facilitate this whole process. And the things we found out about Naude shocked even us who deal with this kind of stuff on a daily basis. Naude was charged with playing a leading role in facilitating this opening convention. On the website of her organization or company, ANC Dialogue Institute, she's described as a coach, trainer, and change facilitator who facilitates systematic transformation processes. But what on earth does that actually mean? Well, Naude's organization is dedicated to spreading leftist propaganda in the workplace and in other official settings through lectures on how human identities are social constructs often subject to systematic power structures that supposedly perpetuate inequality. Her far-left courses aims at dismantling boogeymen like the patriarchy and systematic racism, with courses costing more than 15,000 rands or $800 for these day training events. Almost every serious party invited to this so-called national dialogue have withdrawn from what they rightly view as nothing more than an echo chamber for ANC policy, a stage-managed process that excludes any genuine discussion of distinctive political viewpoints, and an opportunity for the ANC and the ideological bedfellows to pocket a ton of money. This includes organizations from all over the political spectrum, not only center-right parties such as organizations such as the Freedom Front Plus and the Solidarity Movement, but also various institutes that have historically strongly aligned with the ANC and their ideology, such as the foundations of Steve Biko, Thabo Mbeki, Albert Luthuli, Desmond Tutu, and Oliver Tambo. Everyone seems to have lost confidence in this so-called dialogue even before it began, because they rightly see investing hundreds of millions into a project aimed at simply vindicating this destructive government's actions. The reason why no one seemingly wants anything to do with this national dialogue is quite simple. In the midst of a seemingly endless economic crisis, infrastructural collapse, and increasing international isolation, the ANC proceeded to announce that taxpayers will have to come up with another 450 million rands, which is 26 million US dollars, just to facilitate the process, which they know the ANC will only use to justify continuing down the same destructive path they have been on decades for now. I mean, who in their right mind would seriously even consider that Ramaphosa and his ilk would be willing to listen to the opinions being expressed by ordinary South African citizens, if even the greatest public humiliation in the White House for the whole world to see did not even make him consider changing any course? Would anyone seriously think that the ANC government would consider any kind of reform if we as ordinary South Africans with little to no political power express our concerns or our viewpoints, when the same government simply continues to ignore these same concerns when expressed by the most powerful and the richest man on the planet simultaneously? Moreover, the people that Ramaphosa has chosen to facilitate this national dialogue in and of themselves point to the fact that he is not seriously considering listening to any alternative points of view. For example, despite the fact that the oppression of Afrikaners has been one of the main concerns expressed by the United States of America and one of the main reasons why they have severed tremendously favorable trade relations we previously enjoyed with them, the only Afrikaner appointed to the eminent persons group which has been tasked with guiding and championing the national dialogue process is Rolf Meyer, who has himself been a member of the ANC for over 2 decades. Meyer is only one of a handful of extreme far-left Afrikaners who actually support Ramaphosa and the ANC today. The agenda behind the so-called national dialogue has clearly from the very get-go been to try and recover some of the ANC's former moral high ground that they enjoyed under Nelson Mandela. Ramaphosa is desperately trying to save his presidency and his party in light of the fact that it has completely lost most of its international support, and as we pointed out in this recent video, is a dying political fossil currently on its last legs. A video about the absurdity that is the national dialogue with Jonell Naude at the helm went viral over the past weekend.
We are the foot soldiers. We are on the ground. All of you here have bodyguards. We don't have bodyguards. We had a colleague who came here from 3 a.m. in the morning.
All right,
we are
thank you
foot
so
soldiers.
much.
We know what's happening on the ground. And if you say it's a national dialogue for us, you can't shut us down. It's said that you are here because 2026 elections are coming. So you're trying to buy our silence.
All right, thank you so much. Let's give that a hand. And then I'm just going to pause here because this is what we want. This is the dialogue we have been called to do. We are in plenary. We're not going to go into dialogue now because I'm going to give you the reason.
This is not a dialogue. I have a question, ma'am.
You
I have
may
a question.
answer-
No, I have a question before anybody.
Excuse me.
Listen. No, excuse me.
We will-
Excuse me. First, you need to read the pedagogy of the oppressed. This process must be dialogical. It must not be one-sided. You don't come to talk down on us here. Number one. Number two, we are 4 members of the Rastafari community here. We are all bundled up into one theme. We represent a nation of Rastafari of 3 million South African Rastafarians. We can't go under one theme. We have issues that cut across everything that needs to be dialogued here. You don't decide for us. Nothing for us without us. Simple as that. And For the last time, this is a dialogue. Spend more time listening to us than telling us what to do. Stop talking down on us.
By the way, if you find our work informative, receive free updates from us on WhatsApp. Just follow these steps on the banner right here. This so-called national dialogue is about more than just trying to save the ANC in itself. It is also about further milking the South African taxpayer to fund gigs such as this one that Naude currently has with this national dialogue. Our money is being spent on allies of the regime such as Naude, who spend their days trying to indoctrinate otherwise productive people with their fantasies about how the world should work and who in reality contribute nothing positive to our society or our economy. Naude's prominence in Ramaphosa's national dialogue is telling. She first rose to prominence as a scholar in the field of psychology when graduating from the University of Stellenbosch in 2005 with a master's degree focused on reconstructing pedophilia, in other words, normalizing pedophilia. In her thesis, she argues that her study is aimed at, and I quoted, minimizing the need for self-justification explanation on the part of the participants while creating a space in which to explore the question of how a pedophile experiences and creates meaning in his close relationships, which we all know are referring to so-called relationships with children. She specifically says that her study advocates for a, and I quote again, framework that opens a discursive space in which the psychological dimensions of pedophilia may be problematized in ways that are less susceptible to implicit prejudice and bias. She does this by supposedly uncovering the so-called implicit moral assumptions and judgments characteristic of traditional approaches to condemning pedophilia. This is the woman in charge of the national dialogue this weekend. This perverse far-left ideology advocated by the likes of Naude are the type of ideologies associated with Ramaphosa and the ANC's national dialogue. And this is the type of ideology that your tax money is being wasted on in this pony show of a national dialogue. All the organizations that have withdrawn from the so-called dialogue, regardless of their political position, need to be congratulated for doing so. The national dialogue is a farce that is bound to be nothing more than just another step along the way as the ANC steers down a cliff to which they are inevitably heading. In fact, by showcasing to the world what a complete absurdity this entire process is that they wasted so much money on, the ANC has actually only managed to further isolate itself by initiating this costly process at the taxpayer's expense. As noted earlier in this video, the mass withdrawal from its national dialogue reveals that even their closest allies are now finally abandoning them, leaving Ramaphosa and the ANC isolated and alone not only on the international stage but also here locally. If you like our content, make this channel stronger by becoming a member of the Willem Petzer group. Just follow these steps on this banner right here. Of course, the logical next step for parties such as the Freedom Front Plus and the Democratic Alliance, having already withdrawn from the so-called dialogue, is to withdraw from the failed GNU altogether. The reasoning behind this is that all the ANC's most radical and most destructive laws had been pushed through and passed despite their participation in this whole coalition. Their whole argument for getting in bed with the ANC in the first place was to prevent the so-called Doomsday Coalition. We saw what is happening, however, which is that the GNU with the DA and the Freedom Front and other parties does exactly what they argued would happen under this so-called Doomsday Coalition, with the added effect that their teeth as opposition parties had been pulled by letting them into the coalition. In this recent video, we pointed out just how destructive the GNU has actually been and how any continued participation in this coalition does nothing more than simply keeping a dying ANC alive. While an ANC reunion coalition with the MK and the EFF, or the so-called Doomsday Coalition, would have furthered the destruction of not just the ANC but all three ANC splinter parties. Watch this video for more on this. Remember to become a member of the Willem Petzer group. Your support is what helps this channel grow, reaching new heights and changing the hearts and minds of people. Just follow the steps written down in this video underneath me on this banner. Goodbye and God bless you.